So this is video number 12, following on what I did last week about connecting, actually seeing the rib cage from a three-quarter point of view, which is was a good request, right? So let's keep going with that and see how to connect now the rib cage with the pelvis. So first, let's draw our basic skeleton from the front, right? And then we'll see how to move it three-quarters. So block in the three elements axial of the axial skeleton. So that would be the head, the rib cage, and the pelvis, right? And then I want to do, before I get into more details, see if I have the right proportions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm happy with that, right? So the proportion are okay. So now what I want to do is block in more details, right? So rib cage, I'm going to keep it light and then going to go over it, right? Meaning this is the thinking phase. I'm thinking about where to put things. I want to keep it light because if I change my mind, I don't want to have thick, dark lines that are going to become distraction and noise. So I like it like that. I'm thinking blocking the pubic bone at the lower quarter. The head of the femur is going to be about at that level, just above the line of the pubic bone. I'm sorry, the pubic bone. And now clavicles right here. And then I can kind of start hinting at the pose right here. Hinting at the pose, decide which way the legs are going to go, can change my mind, trying a few angles, and then go for a specific pose, right? So this segment is coming, leg is coming slightly forward. So anyway, so arms, etc., right? So if this works now, I want to show you what we introduced today. We introduced the connection between the rib cage and the pelvis, right? So this works fine. Let's go in with details. Let's make it darker, right? Block in the rib cage. Make it maybe a little bit more angular if you want to, right? The length of the neck, again, like just you decide how long it's going to be. Anywhere between like a little bit less than a third to a little bit more than a third of one head. Our measurements are kind of unusual, right? So so now here between, this is the pelvis, right? I was visualizing my form a little bit more, spending a little bit more time in getting the detail going, right? So now between the end of the sternum, right here, and the top of the pubic bone, I have, I like to position here the Linea Alba. So the Linea Alba, which means white line in Latin, it is really not a separate structure. It's a line that divides the rectus abdominis in two. So here is the rectus abdominis. The rectus abdominis is, it means the stratum of the abdomen, rectus abdominis, right? ABD, not dominis, right? Not God, but abdomen. So the stratum of the abdomen, and it connects the rib cage with the pelvis, right? So imagine like a junction here, right? This is kind of the part that keeps it connected, two parts, right? So rectus abdominis in here. The abs, right? We call them abs. On the side, I have the obliques. All right, let's do this now. On the side, I have the obliques. External obliques. Right? When I hear external oblique, it means that there must be also an internal. In fact, there is an internal oblique, and there is also a transversus. But we're going to leave it alone because those are deeper muscles. They're below this layer in here, and we don't need to get now in that kind of complication. So you see how the abs are connecting now the rib cage with the pelvis, right? And of course, this muscle in here the action of this muscle will be flexing forward or laterally, bending laterally, depending on what muscle I use. So let's see what happens if I now connect these two portions of the skeleton when I on a three-quarter point of view, right? So rib cage, my egg slightly compressed, right? And then pelvis here, right? And now I'm thinking this section here will give me the idea of a three-quarter point of view. See that, right? So now open the costal arch here. Top of the abdomen, bottom of the abdomen, right? The abdomen we're going to be included between the rib cage and the pubic bone here, between the inguinal ligament, right? and the costal arch. So now flat plane for the front, right? Iliac spine here and here, and then pubic bone at the lower third. So I can make it a little bit more visible now, right? Using a nice blue, dark blue pencil. This is all real life. See that thing happening now as we do them. There's no delay. All right. So anyway, rib cage. Rib cage here, right? Sternum. Now, I could make it bigger, I could make it a little bit longer, but I cannot leave it like that now. So, iliac crest, I lift the iliac crest a little bit here. So, I mean, I don't like to have too much space between the end of the rib cage and the iliac crest. You know, don't want to leave too much space. So, now, I can block in the head, right? Think of the angle the head is at, turning a little bit that way, three-quarter view, the neck, right, and then arms, right. So here, I mean, I can just draw these to see if I like them, right, keeping in mind the proportional relationship between the arm and the rib cage, right. And I'm thinking maybe this arm moves a little bit too short. It could be a little bit longer here. I can adjust it. Maybe I want to bend it like that, right? So what I'm doing now, I'm visualizing the possibilities, and then decide if I like them or not, right? So especially if I work from imagination, right? If I work from imagination, I had to be able to decide where to put things, if I like them, if I don't like them. So there is no aesthetic concern in here. This is just about measuring, all right? So the aesthetic will come later, right? So let's do one thing at a time. So now from the end of the sternum here to the pubic bone here, I have the linea alba, right? So let's do it red. Let's see. Red. So the linea alba will go down from here to here, but now instead of doing it with, going down with a straight line like this, like I did last week, right, I could start implying the movement, the movement of the soft part of the abdomen, the muscle, which are gonna go in and out and in, provided you don't have too much fat, both intestinal, meaning inside, or outside, subcutaneous, right? So the intestinal fat is inside, in your gut. The subcutaneous is under the skin, the cute. So it's going to be surface. So if I am like very fit, okay, do Pilates every other day, then this form here will be the form created by mostly the muscle, right? So now here I put in my volume of the abs, right, here. See how I start connecting now the rib cage with the pelvis. Why is this junction of muscle, right? The spine is going to be back here, connecting. And now on the side in here, I'm going to have the lats, sorry, the obliques, right? The obliques. So the obliques are going to go down like this, right? Run parallel to the lateral margin of the abs, and then showing there's a little bit of space between the abs and the obliques, going down all the way to the iliac crest, and in fact a little bit lower than that, right? Just on top of the iliac spine. And then here follow the rib cage and jump and go over to the iliac crest. So these are the external obliques. Same thing on the other side, but now because I know what it looks like from the front like this, I can extrapolate, imagine what happens in here when the figure is turned. I'm not going to see a lot of it, but in this case, I'm going to see a little bit of it, right? So that's what I see of the external obliques. So here, so I have abs here, starting from more or less the fifth rib, which is the fifth rib, remember, a little bit above the costal arch, because that's the seventh. So the fifth is going to be a little bit higher than that, right? So the seventh is here, right? So now the oblique, the external oblique, start also at the fifth. So once I find the fifth, then I can position the beginning of the abs, the beginning of the obliques, and here I can put, drawing it as a really schematized view, the serratus, right? Serratus is not as simple as I'm drawing it now, but because up in here is create a series of movement, digitation, we don't need to get into, but down in here, at this level here, I have the fifth rib, I have the fifth digitation, right? So the fifth digitation has a slightly downward angle direction. What's wrong with the pencils today? They don't feel like working. Oh yeah, like that, right? So now this is the fifth, right? Fifth. The sixth increases the direction a little bit more. Seventh, eighth, and the ninth is behind. There are 8 to 9 digitations in the serratus, right? And I only see, let's say, typically the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. The one above are going to be under the pectoralis. I don't see them. The one below, the lower, the 8th and the 9th, are going to be most likely kind of disguised by the lat or under that, so I don't worry about those, but I'm going to see the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, right? So these I see, these digitation I'm going to see, so I want to make sure I have a good depiction of them. Now, the space between, see this digitation, they create a little bit of space in here, right? That space is going to be filled in by the latissimus dorsi, and then I'm sorry, guys, the external oblique right here, and this is called interdigitation. Interdigitation, right? So what it does, this muscle in here will go in between the fibers of, actually the segments of the serratus, like this, and create this interdigitation, right? So eventually I want to start subdividing the segment of the abs in the six pack above the umbilicus, right? And below here, there is another division, typically, but in here is where we usually store a little bit of fat. So these divisions, so in reality, we have a 10 packs, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But typically, I'm going to see only the 6-pack here, plus 2, which we typically don't count in the 6-pack, right? So again, the umbilicus is going to be more or less at the level of the top of the iliac crest. Just above the umbilicus, I put a division of the first division of the abs, then another one here, and then another one here that it might go, some of it is going to go over the rib cage, right? So now I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that is the ab. So with the next video, I want to show you eventually how to connect the rib cage, and the pelvis posteriorly.